Today I'm going to talk to you about open and remote conditional sentences. These go by some other kinds of names. Sometimes remote conditionals are called unreal conditionals or counterfactuals or contrary to fact conditionals. But I'm going to use the word remote to describe these conditionals. And I get that term from the Cambridge Grammar of the English Language. The analysis I'm going to present here today is also taken from this source here, and it doesn't cover all conditionals. There are other kinds that you can think of that I probably won't get into today. And furthermore, the grammar of conditional sentences is changing even now, especially in the spoken language. But what I'm going to present is still the accepted standard for written English, and in particular academic written English. So we have here a 2x2 diagram, and the columns here I represent as open conditionals and remote conditionals. Open conditionals are things where the if clause, it might be true and it might not be. We don't know. Remote are what have sometimes been called unreal. These are things that indicate unlikelihood or perhaps impossibility, but I'm calling them remote because they might also just indicate politeness, where you're trying to indicate that something is not as certain, that you're not really assuming that something might be the case. Now, meanwhile, the top row I've called present time, but really this is just non-past time. It could be present or in the future, but I'm just going to call present sounds better than non-past. Okay, and in the bottom I'm going to call past time. So these are conditionals that apply to some time in the past. And I'm not saying present tense or past tense because the verb tense won't necessarily match up with the time we're talking about. Okay, so let's look at the top left corner here. If I can find my mouse. Here we go. A present time open conditional. If he knows the answer, he will tell us. So maybe he knows the answer, maybe he doesn't. It's open. Either possibility is possible. And if he knows the answer, he will tell us. Okay, and now if I can just find here we go. Let's talk about the present time remote conditional. If he knew the answer, he would tell us. And I seem to have lost my arrow again. Here we go. That means he doesn't know the answer. If he knew the answer, he would tell us. Now notice that even though it's present time, it's past tense. And that's because the past tense in English does more than one job. One of the jobs it can do is to show actual past time, but the job it's doing here is to show what the Cambridge Grammar of the English Language calls modal remoteness, or in other words, unrealness, if you like. Now, let's look at the bottom left here. Past time. If he knew the answer, he never told us. So it's an open conditional. It means maybe he knew the answer, maybe he didn't know the answer. We just don't know. But in any case, if he knew the answer, well, he never told us that he knew. Now I've colored these two squares green to indicate that the past tense is doing one of its jobs. Here, in the open past time conditional, the past tense is showing past time. Here, in the present time remote conditional, it's showing this modal remoteness, or unreality, if you like. The past tense can do either of those two jobs. It cannot do both at the same time. If we want to talk about something that is in the past time and it did not happen, it's modally remote, or it's unreal, then the past tense just isn't powerful enough to do the job. What we need is sort of the double past tense, or as it's known in English grammar, the past perfect tense. Now my arrow seems to have disappeared again, but notice it's if he had known the answer, he would have told us. He didn't know the answer yesterday, last week. If he had known it, he would have told us, but he didn't know it. Before I leave, I'll also talk about the second clause of each of these sentences. Notice that in the present time open conditional, it has a present tense verb here. By the way, you may have heard that will tell is a future tense. You can watch my other video on why I classify this as present tense. Here we have the past tense of that modal verb, and over here we have the past tense of just an ordinary verb. Okay? And then here we have the past perfect tense of this modal verb with told. Okay. So this classification works very well for many conditionals here, and in fact this past tense for the remoteness and past tense for past time works for every verb in English except for one where there's just one little slight deviation, the verb be. So here we have the same diagram. Here's a present time open conditional. If he's sorry, why isn't he apologizing? Maybe he's sorry, maybe he's not sorry, but if he is sorry, well, the question is why isn't he apologizing? Now, here's the past time open conditional. If he was sorry, he never apologized. So maybe he was sorry, maybe he wasn't, I just don't know. All I do know is that he did not apologize if he was sorry. And now, the remoteness. If he were sorry, he would apologize. So, in spoken English, many people would just say, if he was sorry here. If he was sorry, he would apologize. In very formal standard English, it is still, if he were sorry, he would apologize. He's not sorry, but if he were, he would apologize. So, this one little exception is the one place where this gets different in English. And even here, it only shows up in the in the third person singular. If it were plural, if they were sorry, it's the same. And then once we get here, we have if he had been sorry, he would have apologized. Okay. Now, I said this did not cover all the kinds of conditionals you might have. For example, what if we start off in the past time remote? If he had known the answer, but then we want to say something that's true right now. If he had known the answer yesterday, then he would tell us right now. That's possible too. There are these mixed conditionals where you might start off in one square and end up in the other one. But I won't get into those right now. For right now, just remember this. The past tense can show modal remoteness in the present time, or it can show past time, but it can't do both. If you want both, then you want your past perfect tense.